What is happening, everyone? Welcome back to episode 15 of Manny's food channel. It's your boy Manny, aka Mr. Cooking It Up. And for this episode, finally we had some decent weather here. It's been on and off, but I finally got to it. It's a good day to barbecue, so I thought, what other way to do it than to cook the traditional Kebab-e-Barg, which is a Persian strip loin kebab along with basmati saffron rice and roasted tomato. So let's get to it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to rehydrate the saffron. I have about a teaspoon of Iranian Saffron, and I'm going to put about a quarter cup of warm water, and then we're going to let this steep for a little while. Alright, the next step for the marinade is we're going to be juicing 2 large onions. We're going to discard the pulp, and we're just going to keep the juices for the marinade. Okay, so now we have everything ready for our marinade. We're gonna mix everything together. So here I have the onion juice. It's gonna add a bit of acidity to the dish. And I have the saffron. I let it steep for around probably 10 minutes. And now all that flavor is gonna infuse into this marinade. Next up, I have about a quarter cup of fresh lime juice. A little bit of black pepper, and finally I'm going to add some olive oil, probably around 1 cup. I'm not going to add salt now because the salt is going to make the meat hard and we want the meat to be very tender. So now we're just going to let this marinade sit for 5 to 10 minutes while we prepare our meat. Okay, so typically when I like to make this recipe I use beef tenderloin, but for the sake of this recipe I'm just going to use a rib steak. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it in half, and I'm going to kind of square them off, so that way when we put them on the stick they're even. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut thin slices across of the meat, probably around half a centimeter thick. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use the back side or the blunt side of the knife. And we're going to quickly add some indents to tenderize the meat, so that way when we add it into the marinade, the marinade seeps through the meat. And then we're just going to flip it over and do the same thing for the other side. And then trim off any excess meat on the sides. We have to, just to keep the shape even. And then that's the first strip, and we're going to continue to do this until we have all the strips ready. Alright, so now that we've cut and tenderized all our meat, now we'll slowly add in one at a time each slice of meat and let it marinate for at least an hour. I tend to marinate this for about a day. That's why I don't add salt. We're going to let this marinate for a minimum of an hour. And in the meantime, I'm going to go set up the charcoal outside, and I'll discuss a little bit of the different kind of skewers that we're going to use for this barbecue. Okay, so before we get into skewering up the meat, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the different kinds of skewers we have in Iran. So we have 3 different kinds of skewers. The first one is the thickest one, which we typically use for kubide kebab or ground beef kebab. The second one we use is for Kebab-e-Barg, which is this kind of kebab or chicken kebab. And the last one we have is the thinnest one here, which is typically used for roasted tomatoes. In every kind of recipe or any kind of kebab that Iranians or Persians like to make, we have roasted tomato with it because it adds a little bit of nice smoky flavor and also cuts down the richness of the kebab and the rice that we're serving it with. You can get these skewers from any kind of Middle Eastern grocery store. They don't cost very much. They cost probably, I think I bought these for around $2 to $3 per skewer, and I have about 50 of them because I typically cook a lot of kebab. That's kind of what I'm known for. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be skewering up the tomatoes, and we're just going to skewer it up sideways. I just sliced them in half, and we're going to cook these off first because tomatoes cook longer than the Kebab-e-Barg because the beef is very thin. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to season it with a touch of salt, and then I'm going to set it aside. Next up, we're going to use the middle-sized skewer. So I used the smallest one for the tomato, and we're going to use the middle-sized skewer for the Kebab-e-Barg. Another reason why we use these kind of skewers is because it conducts great heat, and not only does it help to cook the meat on the outside but also on the inside as well, so that way you don't have the outside cooked before the inside and it evenly cooks throughout. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a piece of meat. Don't squeeze any of the juices out because you want all that flavor to stay in the meat. And all I'm going to do is just skewer it up so it stays onto the skewer. Now remember earlier we didn't season the meat, so this is where we're going to do it. And we're just going to do it like so that way it hangs off. And it won't touch the charcoal because the charcoal is quite low. And we're going to be controlling the heat as we're cooking it, so that way we don't overcook it, but it still stays nice and moist and tenderized as well. So I'm going to continue to skewer up these pieces of meat. And because of the size that I cut them at, I'm probably only going to put 2 per skewer, just so we have evenly distributed pieces amount of meat on each skewer, and that way it cooks evenly. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to season it with just a touch of salt and continue to do this until we have all of the kebabs skewered up, and then we can go to the charcoal and start grilling. I won't let you go. So there's a lot of rules, actually not a lot, but there's a couple of things that definitely help to make the kebab taste better. One of them is always use charcoal. If you have gas, that's totally fine, like gas barbecue stoves and whatnot, but charcoal adds a different dimension and different flavor, a touch of smokiness in there as well. So always, if you can, use charcoal, because charcoal has the best flavor. And evenly distribute it. You don't want high heat, you want very, very low heat. So we don't need to intensify the heat at any part of this process. But if you do need to, then definitely have like a piece of cardboard or something that you can bring up the heat. So now what I'm going to start off with is I'm going to start off with the tomato. So I'm going to start off by cooking the tomato, and I'm going to put it the inside down first, so that way we can seal off any of the juices so it doesn't seep out of the tomato. And then we're going to turn it around and cook the other side as well. Okay, so now we're going to turn it over. As you can see, it's starting to char at the very top there. So now we're going to flip it over. We're going to blister the tomato side. And now we can start adding our Kebab-e-Barg. So we're just going to put it on here like so. And don't move away from the barbecue because you want to watch it. Make sure it doesn't overcook. And every 30 seconds or so, turn it. And if it starts to smoke too much, then sometimes you can adjust and take it off the heat as you need to, so that way it doesn't smoke over too much, and then continue to cook until it's ready. But towards the very end of the cooking process of the kebab, I have some melted butter here that I'm going to baste on top, and I have a piece of bread here because you can never really wait for barbecue to table. It's always barbecue to mouth. It's very traditional for Persians to stand beside a barbecue and eat kebabs as they're cooking it, so we always have to do a taste test, of course. But now I'm just going to let it sit, and we're going to continue to cook. Paris, I won't let you go. Oh, Paris, I won't let you go. Now as you're cooking, if you feel that sometimes heat is unevenly distributed and some parts of the meat is cooking from the other, you can definitely swap between the skewers, like the position of the skewers. So the heat right now is more distributed on this side than it is on the left side. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to swap them over. That way the meat continues to cook evenly, and turn them every 30 seconds or so.
let you go.
So Persians are renowned for always having to make extra kebab because half of it would disappear right at the barbecue stove. So just because I'm doing a video doesn't mean that will change. And I'm gonna do a quick taste test. Cheers. It's so delicious. I'm going to continue to let it cook and baste it with a little bit of butter. And then we can start plating. And there we have it, folks. The Kebab-e-Barg. Look how juicy that looks. Now we're gonna go outside, enjoy the weather, and of course, the taste test. You know, I'm glad finally today I got to making a barbecue recipe because it's been on the cards for quite a while now, but unfortunately because of the weather we've been having here, it's been very on and off. I haven't been able to get to it. So I thought it'd be a great way to introduce a barbecue video by creating a traditional Persian Kebab-e-Barg recipe. So I hope you enjoy. Definitely try it out. Let me know how it is. It's very easy to make and is, as always, freaking delicious. But without further ado, the taste test. Gonna grab a piece of meat here. Try it out with a little bit of the rice. And of course, a little bit of sumac just to add a bit of acidity and cut down the richness of the tomatoes and the barbecue. This is freaking delicious. It's very easy to make, but for some reason, sometimes the easiest things taste the most delicious. So have a try. Let me know how it is. Cook it up with your friends and family, and it'll definitely create a memory to remember. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time.